We all have our goats, and it's just who we respect and who we look up to in the industries, and people who have kind of just been around with us for a while. And the reason why I'm leading off this video is because I want to talk about one of my favorite people who are in content creation, of all time. That sounded weird. I want to talk about Markiplier. More specifically, I want to talk about the 6-minute rant that he had surrounding Poppy Playtime Chapter 5, and just everything going around on surrounding this like entire rant that he had. So I think I need to first get out of the way that I've legitimately never played Poppy Playtime or any of the chapters. I've really only seen full playthroughs of like chapter 1 and maybe chapter 2. And so I'm going to give a perspective of my thoughts on the game of someone who has kind of just been on the orbiting side of it. I've seen a lot of clips of it, obviously. I've seen like the final chase scenes. I've seen big reveals on social media, just clips. And so the reason why I really don't care about this is because it just seems like another mascot horror. Five Nights at Freddy's has kind of fallen off a little bit. I mean, like, it was really big, and I will say once again, I've watched Markiplier play the first one and probably like 2, 3, 4, 5. I even watched him play Security Breach recently, and the thing is that like that game obviously fell off for me, and I feel like the entire mascot genre of horror has kind of fallen off in the sense that like it just doesn't feel like there's any motion in it left, and it's kind of hard for me to like get invested in any sort of game in any capacity when it comes to mascot horror, just in its entirety. In regards to Poppy Playtime, it kind of was the victim of one of that for me. It's like I really just was completely apathetic to me, and also I never really thought it looked all that good. And the reason why, and it's really funny because it's something that Markiplier said, is that a lot of the game just kind of focuses on chases. And it's just the same thing over and over again, where like the big reveal always is just like at the end there's a chase and someone dies. And that's kind of why I really didn't care about it. It was because it was predictable and the same outcome over and over again. And maybe if some people said, oh, they did something completely new in a later on chapter, then sure, I would play it. And that's kind of like what Markiplier's main 6-minute rant was. Now I'm not going to show the entire thing. If you want to watch it, you can watch it. It's kind of plastered all over Twitter. You can probably just Google Markiplier rant. But I want to play like a little like 5 or 6 second snippet of it that kind of encapsulates his entire rant surrounding it and his entire mindset surrounding it.
Didn't apply the mechanics that you've been learning the entire fucking game. And it had that. I'm not even saying it didn't have that, but it's like, oh my God, enough!
Now, in my entire time watching Markiplier, I'm not saying I've watched every single video of the past like 10 to 12 years of him on YouTube. I will say I've legitimately never seen him actually tear into a game this much, or even like get that mad about a game that isn't like a rage game that is just like meant to make you mad. This is the first time I've ever seen him, rant about a game and actually like criticize it hard. Because I've a lot of time like if he doesn't like a game, he won't like explicitly like rip and tear and say every single thing that he thinks is wrong with a game. This is the first time I've ever seen him do it. And like what he said in this video is kind of like repeating of like why I didn't play. And it feels like it's kind of like a very linear story that has the same formula that keeps on repeating over and over again. And you would like for a game that has such this big of success and this big a movement to make some sort of change. Like once again, it kind of happened with FNAF 1, 2, 3, 4. Very similar games. At least they're slightly different. There's slightly game mechanics. But like it gets to the point where like if you have 10 to Five Nights at Freddy's games in a row that follow kind of the exact same formula where you just close the doors, you watch over the animatronics, it's gonna get boring. And so like that's exactly what happened with Poppy Playtime. And now obviously, just because big YouTuber went on a rant does not mean a lot of people are supporting it. A lot of people are fans of what he's saying. And obviously, I might white knight for Markiplier a little bit too, because he is serving as a vessel for my critiques on the game as well. And so because of that, I'm just gonna put on the armor and defend them a little bit. And also, I'm gonna show some tweets. And no hate to anyone who's tweeting this stuff out. They're entitled to their own opinion. I'm gonna respond to it too because why not? So one big criticism I've seen of Markiplier's little rant right here is this critique right here about him playing Garden of Banban. Now I have seen a good amount of videos of Garden of Banban, shockingly, and the kind of main defense for this, game and for like playing this game is that if you look at the game and kind of just see it naturally, now I don't know the intention of the developers, but naturally you don't expect it to be that good or that high quality. It kind of seems like a shit post of a horror game. Now, once again, don't really know about the actual intention of it, but if you look at Garden of Banban and expect it to be anything groundbreaking or revolutionary, you don't have proper critical thinking skills and like working eyes, because it does not look like a horror game that you would expect to be massive. While in like Poppy Playtime, it kind of looks like they're tending to be this like big AAA horror game or maybe AA. I don't really know. and that's like trying to be like we're revolutionizing the game. When Garden of Banban is just like it's just there. It's a game that like you don't need to think much about it. It's kind of like horror stop, if I had to say it. And like it kind of frames itself that way. Unlike Poppy Playtime, where it's like we are the next big horror mascot game that's gonna revolutionize the industry. Another like kind of like counter to what I've seen is that people saying like this is just him ranting, saying the game isn't for him, which is true. That is a fair thing to say. Maybe this rant is just because he's played the same game 5 times in a row, and like he just doesn't really like the format. That is true. That is fair. A fair thing to criticize. And obviously, any sort of criticism that you like, sure, you could say it's objective criticism. Could say criticism is subjective, but sometimes there is stuff that just like isn't for you that other people like, and that's fine. And like but I think kind of to whittle down Markiplier's rant to just saying it just isn't for him is kind of not good, because when it's a very valid criticism of the game following the same formula 5 times in a row, it can get boring and it makes it more difficult to make more people attracted to the game that aren't people who just like that formula specifically. So, is it admitting the game is for him? Yes, but the reason why the game isn't for him does like have the valid criticisms of it just being redundant over and over again. And it's like this was kind of a long rant of someone trying to protect their game, protect Poppy Playtime, and so let's just read it all together. I don't think Mark's attack on the game is valid because it's coming from a total lack of brain activity. One point that stuck out is when he says the chase is just induced mechanics and expects you to learn them under pressure. This is false. Every single mechanic that appears in the chase sequence is used across the entire chapter. You would have hours to learn them, learn how each hand operates, the game physics, the design language, which pieces of the environment interact in which ways, before you reach any chases. The chases are tested knowledge that you are assumed to have built up while playing. It's clear, however, that in the case of Markiplier's goons, this assumption was wrong. Literally the only time you need to learn a mechanic while in action is at the very start of the train chase. The game expects you to turn around and see the big glowing levers and think, I should pull these. Again, Markiplier isn't smart enough to figure this out, and this isn't the fault of the developers. Also, he says the chases themselves rely on trial and error too much. No shit, it's a chase. You're meant to find the correct path, escape the monster, that's the whole point. Oh, but he says the game becomes less scary the more you fail. Again, no shit. That's every horror game. Mark here is being unfair or is an idiot. Let me throw some shade on FNAF, only because Mark is the king of that. No hate the FNAF fans who want no part of this. Did you know the more you see a jump scare in FNAF, the less scary it becomes? I know, I'm shocked to learn that. And did you know that FNAF is one of the most trial and error heavy game series on the planet? You gotta try and try again. Learning how much power you will use at a given time, where the robots are going, how much time to spend the cameras, and that's the first game. First going against public every time now just come off as hypothetical and petty. It's like he hasn't even played a video game his whole life. And the story, he's wrong again. The story is incredibly simple to follow, and you don't even need to find the tape. Poppy's always telling you what the end game is. I'm assuming. Characters explain themselves and their actions numerous times. Again, Mark proves he isn't smart enough for Poppy Playtime. Now this is kind of insulting Markiplier, just calling him a fucking idiot. Well, not as blatantly obvious as that, but he's kind of insinuating that Mark is not smart enough to play it. And we have people defending him in the comments saying like, oh, he's played a bunch of 1,000 horror games, and like obviously then he should be able to comment on it, which is like a fine thing. But like when you say that a game like a chase mechanic relies on you specifically to know trial and error, I think that's kind of not true. I feel like if you really lock in on a trace, you should be able to complete it 100% of the time on the first try. Now, obviously, once again, I think the only reason why you should not be able to finish a chase sequence in, I guess, Poppy Playtime, what I'm seeing, is not due to trial and error, or not knowing game mechanics. It's due to the stress of the person being chased. But when you know a chase is going to happen because Poppy Playtime follows the same formula every single fucking game, you're going to know when a chase has happened, and you're not really going to be afraid of being chased. You're more going to be like, please just don't, kill me. I want to finish this. And then you don't know what you're looking at, even though you're focusing on what you're looking at, because you want to get the chase over, because it's the same chase over and over again. And if you don't see the game mechanics there, then it is kind of an issue of the chase being trial and error rather than actual game mechanics. And I feel like, in my opinion, as someone who plays games, if a chase is trial and error, it's a shit chase and it is not fun. Now, obviously, they do have kind of a valid criticism of FNAF. Once again, it is redundant over and over again. But that's kind of the point of the game. No one's going into Poppy Playtime and be like, this is a trial and error game. No, the idea is it's supposed to be like a linear storytelling horror game where you learn the story as you go on. And when FNAF, all of the story is kind of in the periphery of it. The point of FNAF is not to understand the story while playing the game, and then fight the animatronics on the side note and like on the ends of the game, on the bookends and like in specific chapters. The point of the FNAF is just like to not get jump scared. So like obviously, you know, when a game is the point of the game is not get jump scared, you're really gonna be fine playing FNAF. You know, obviously later games like it does kind of force you more towards the story, but once again, the story really doesn't develop too much in the actual gameplay part of it, which is why the trial and error is fine. If that makes any sense, I might be yapping out of my ass right here, but you know, this is kind of just in the front of my mind right now, and I want to get this out. I want to defend my gold like a white knight. Okay, I once again I'm going to say that if anything over here comes across as like me just white knighting, it's probably because I am, and I'm a biased person who's been watching this dude for like 12 years. Okay, getting that out of the way halfway, like 12 minutes into the video, 10, 12 minutes into the video. And once again, no hate to this person. They're very like valid arguments. Like they could believe that, you know, chases are meant to be trial and error, and that FNAF is just jump scare slop. But I think insulting Mark and just saying like he's an idiot is kind of just like, you know, throws your argument out the window if you're willing to, you know, if you're not willing to just say, or at least accept his criticisms as possible criticisms of the game. And not like, you know, I know you've been seeing this like random thing at the top of the tab, this crazy account, and like this is like how it just doesn't work, and like this is how the, you know, the brain college has started to talk about this. So this person just calls Iron Lung shit, and then this guy says the game is dog shit, nothing changed that, and then they just, you know, go into like what a bunch of just random like bullshit going on. And like, so, you know, if anything, these are the people you should be watching argue, because like, what is this entire conversation? You know, just, yeah. So I don't even know, but like, if we're going to encapsulate the entire Markiplier Poppy Playtime drama, it's just look at these dumbasses fight, and then there you go. And then like, I have another tweet that kind of just like talks about the same thing, but I talked about Garden of Banban, where like people know what they're getting into with Garden of Banban. People know it's going to be kind of shitty. I don't even know if Poppy Playtime has massive billions of dollars. I don't even know if that's true. I'd be shocked if that was true. So that's kind of like, I don't think it does have billions of dollars, but I think it has more cash flow into it than Garden of Banban does. But once again, entirely could be wrong in that way. Entirely could be wrong with that assumption. But this is just kind of like reasserting the point when I was pulling tweets to like talk about this, that you don't think Garden of Banban is going to be good when you look at it, okay? You think it's going to be kind of shitty. And unlike Poppy Playtime, where you like, it kind of feels like it's supposed to be a game that's like bigger than what it is. And so, kind of just like to wrap up this defense and white knight session of, you know, my GOAT Markiplier, I think like a big issue with Poppy Playtime that like is why I never got into it is just because it just feels like it's mascot horror that isn't going to do anything too crazy. Like the reason why FNAF worked and why like it was really good, it would revolutionize like mascot horror, like probably one of the first ones ever, is because it was new. It was like a unique thing. No one had really thought of doing it before. But I think Garden of Banban has the issue where it kind of uses a lot of like mechanics that horror games have already used before, such as, you know, chases. And because of that, like it just doesn't feel too much like it's innovating in any way, and it's kind of relying too heavily on people just liking the story around the game, that they're able to just, you know, accept the way the game works as like a concept and as a blueprint without, you know, being too mad about it, without being too annoyed. I think that's the big issue. When you have like someone like me who doesn't really like see the story as all that interesting, like, and if the gameplay from what I've just seen and the only thing I've seen is just redundant over and over again, I'm not going to enjoy it. And I think the people who like Markiplier, who play the game, play all 5 games and then don't enjoy it, also going to run into that same issue where the story doesn't really make them all that invested in it either, to continue playing it and then kind of just drop it because, once again, it feels like they're playing the same game over and over again. And just like, you know, also wrap up everything that I've said, don't go hating on anyone. Don't fight about this game with anyone on Twitter. It is legitimately Poppy's playtime, okay? I think I've wasted too much time of my life talking about Poppy's playtime in about like the 10, 15 minutes that I've talked about it. And so if you even go on Twitter and yell at people about it, don't do it. It's a waste of your time. You're allowed to like it if you like it. You don't have to like it if you don't like it. This is a really like Fence City bullshit position, I know. But like, I don't want to say myself as the arbiter of all that is holding in gaming. And so just have fun with the games you play. Just enjoy the games that you play. If you like it, you're obligated to. If Markiplier doesn't like it, he's obligated to it. You're not beholden to Markiplier's opinion, and your game is not good or worse depending on what a big YouTuber says on the game. I was just kind of talking about it because I just saw a big clip of him, you know, one of my favorite YouTubers, justifying my outside little information view of the game and just everyone fucking fighting and throwing fisticuffs at each other because they wanted to either hate on the game or defend the game. But that's really all I got to say for today. So thank you for watching this stupid rant about a game that is irrelevant, and my life will move on if I do or do not play it. Just like if people do or do not play it, my life will move on, and I don't really care. That's all I got for today. So thank you for watching. Goodbye.